This is Module 1, Lesson 4, Equivalent Ratios. The goals of this lesson are, I can determine if ratios are equivalent, and I can find equivalent ratios of a given ratio. Once again, as you watch this video, feel free to pause at any time, go back, or to watch it again as many times as necessary, and make sure you take good notes as you watch the video. Let's now go to example number 1. Example 1, the morning announcement said that 2 out of every 7 6th grade students in the school have an overdue library book. Jasmine said, that would mean 24 of us have overdue books. Grace argued, no way, that is too high. How can you determine who is right? Now, let's take a look at some of the information that we're given here. 2 out of every 7 6th graders have an overdue library book. That tells us about the ratio involved here. 2 out of every 7. It tells us that we're going to have a ratio of 2 to 7 involved. Now, it also tells us that Grace said that would mean 24 kids have overdue library books. We want to know, how can you determine who is right? Now, in order to know who is right, we have to know how many total 6th grade students there are. They don't give us that information in this particular story problem. But let's go ahead and calculate and see if Jasmine's statement would be reasonable. Would it be reasonable that 24 students have overdue library books? Now I'm going to show you how we can work this using the tool that we already learned, a tape diagram, and then I'm also going to show you another tool called equivalent ratios. We have a ratio of 2 to 7. So 2 out of every 7 6th grade students have an overdue library book. So I'm going to label this top one overdue and not overdue. 2 out of every 7. Now I know we said 2 to 7 is our ratio, but if we're talking a tape diagram, we got to look at the parts. 2 kids have overdue library books. 5 would have not overdue library books. She's saying that 24 kids would have overdue library books. I'm going to label that 24 here. If that entire bar is 24 and there's 2 equal pieces, if we take 24 and divide it by 2, we get 12. That tells us that each piece would be 12. That means each of these would be 12. How many kids would not have overdue library books? We would take 5 times 12, since there's 12 in each part, and we would say there's 60. Now if we add up the 2 parts, the 24 and the 60, we would get 84. 84 total 6th grader. And that sounds like a reasonable number, so Jasmine could be correct. However, once again, we don't know exactly for sure if she is correct. Now, another way that we can solve this kind of problem is using a tool called equivalent ratios. And in this, I'm going to use the ratio 2 to 7. That first 2, the first number, represented overdue library books. How many kids had overdue library books? The 7 represented a total. So 2 kids out of a total 7 had overdue library books. I'm going to set that equal to another ratio, and it's going to follow that same pattern where the first number is going to be how many overdue kids, and the second number is going to be total. We're going to use that 24, and we're going to figure out how many total kids that would be. Equivalent ratios are equivalent when you can multiply the first number by a certain amount and multiply a second number by the same amount to get a new ratio. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we take 2 times 12, we get 24. If we take 7 times that same amount, that 12, and we also call that a C amount for future reference, 7 times 12 is going to give us 84. So the ratio 2 to 7 is equivalent to 24 to 84. And that can also tell us the same amount of what we had before. So 2 different ways here to solve that problem. The first method was the tape diagram that we learned yesterday, and the new method is called tape or equivalent ratios.